Oh my god, WotC actually got me specifically an early holiday present because they're apparently already playtesting the new version of the Artificer class. I mean, to be fair, I am still quite annoyed that it wasn't just included as part of the new core rulebook. I think it's really weird that there's only a single class in the game that isn't a core class. Like, you gotta kind of pick one lane or the other at some point. Like, either make Artificer a core class with the rest of the classes in the player's handbook, or at least come up with like one other non-core class. It's just weird that there's only one, and especially because it happens to be my personal favorite class. So, of course, I have to wait a little bit longer before we get the update. But at least that update is seemingly coming faster than I expected. So, I am curious if that means that they're planning on reprinting a new Eberron book actually relatively soon. So, I guess we'll have to see where that goes. However, for the time being, we have a class to look at. I am very curious to see what they're going to do with the Artificer, because generally speaking, I have liked most of the design decisions that they have made for the 2024 rule set. I think they could have still gone a bit further in some places, but at the very least, it is a huge step in the right direction for the overall design of the game. So let's go ahead and just dive into what has changed. So, starting off at the top with the first level ability, Magical Tinkering. Now, the original Artificer class, Magical Tinkering, was kind of a fairly niche, like prestidigitation style cantrip. Although I would argue that prestidigitation is almost more useful than what Magical Tinkering can do. Like, I always personally treated it almost like a kind of terrible magical cell phone. Like, you can use it as a light, you can emit recorded sounds, you can put images on it and display messages, you can make it emit odors, or like it was a very niche use case that didn't really have a lot of like actual uses, especially beyond like early levels. Whereas this already looks pretty interesting to me. At first level, while holding Tinker's tools, you can just create one item in an unoccupied space within 5 feet of yourself, choosing the item from the following list. And it's a bunch of standard stuff like block and tackle, bucket, caltrops. You know, you can use that for a trap. Crowbar could be useful. You can make a lamp and the oil to fuel it. You can make a rope. It doesn't say how much rope. Even in the equipment section of the player's handbook, I don't think it actually says how much rope a unit of rope is. I assume like it's a standard like 50 feet rope kind of situation, in which case that's 250 feet a day, because you can of course use this ability up to 5 times a day based on your intelligence modifier. So like this actually I think could be pretty useful. I mean, being able to make a tinderbox and a torch, like that basically is the light cantrip for free. But speaking of cantrips, they've also made it so that whenever you finish a long rest, you can swap out your cantrips for free, or at least one of your cantrips. And that honestly makes sense for the Artificer, in my opinion, because, like, the Artificer was always a utility focused class. So being able to swap out your cantrips so that you can have things like mending or create bonfire or something, but only on days where it's useful, that just kind of makes sense for what the class does. As for the rest of the spellcasting, I think it's pretty much normal as expected stuff. Um, Now we get to the magic item creation. So this is a huge part of the class because artificers are of course half casters, and they basically make up for the other half by crafting magical items. Now, in the 2014, or I guess it's like 2019 technically, version of the Artificer, the way that this ability worked was kind of weird and limited because you had a very specific list of magic items that you can make. Now, a lot of these were unique to the Artificer. Like, for example, you could make like a homunculus servant, or you could make the mind sharpener, or a radiant weapon, or the repulsion shield. Um, which, like, I don't think those are normal magic items that other people can get, but it's kind of neat that, like, the Artificer can make them specifically. Other than that, you could make like normal magic items, but only on a very specific list, which is annoying because, as I've brought up in some of my past videos talking about this kind of thing, that meant that like as new books come out with new magic items, this list doesn't get updated. So even though you would think that there are like items that the artificer should be able to craft, they just can't. And it's really annoying, especially if you think about upgrading the artificer to the 2024 rule set. There's a lot of fun new magic items in the new player's handbook that the artificer just can't really interact with directly, and that kind of sucks. In fact, the only freeform aspect of it is that you can only craft, I believe, where is it? Not spell storing item. Okay, yeah, here it is. Yeah, so under the replicate magic item, you have this very specific list of items, or you can craft any common tier item, which are basically cosmetics at best. There's very few actually useful common tier items. Like, I guess that means you could make like a compass or something, but I mean at that point you might as well just craft it the old-fashioned way since it's going to be so cheap anyways. But yeah, so what they have done here is that you still have the list of specific items that you can make, but they've also added this slot on the chart where you can just make any common item, which is the same as the original Artificer, of course, but now it upgrades so that at level 6, you can make any uncommon armor, wand, or weapon. At level 10, you can make any uncommon ring or wondrous item. And at level 14, you can make any rare armor, ring, wand, weapon, or wondrous item. So this makes it a lot more freeform. You basically get free reign to look at basically all of the magic items in the Player's Handbook and the Dungeons Master's Guide and any other new books that come out in the future, and now the Artificer can just make those items at will. Now, one downside I have with this is that, like, so the original Artificer, you would get the ability to craft things like a basic +1 armor or a +1 weapon or a +1 focus or something. And you can still do that at level 2, which is nice. But in the original class, that would upgrade to a +2 at level 10, which I think makes sense. Like, by the time you get to level 10, you should probably have a +2 weapon by that point. But in this, you can't really do that, because if you actually look at what an uncommon tier weapon or armor is, so yeah, here is basically all of the uncommon tier weapons and armors, right? And like there are some pretty interesting things. You got the Sentinel shield, and you can make a +1 shield, which you could already do at level 2. Um, but you can't make a +2 shield or anything like that. So there, I feel like, because yeah, at level 10, you only unlock the ability to make uncommon rings or wondrous items. +2 weapons wouldn't unlock until, I think, level 14. In fact, actually, is that even true? No, actually. So at level 14, you can still only make a +1 suit of armor. You can make +2 weapons, but you can only make +1 armor, and that seems like, I get that like armor is, I guess, valued a little bit more than weapons, I guess, for some reason. But it still feels weird that you can't make like +2 armor by level 10. I mean, you can still make some powerful armor. Like, in fact, so one of the more subtle things that is actually something I like in its favor, despite the fact that you're now losing out on being able to make higher level, armor and whatnot, is that you can now make enspelled items. So let me, here we go. Yeah, so the enspelled armor, enspelled weapon, enspelled staff. So I don't think you can make the enspelled staff, because it does specifically say armor, wand, or weapon, and staves do not count as wands last time I checked. That's why they're listed differently here. But enspelled armor and enspelled weapons are actually still really nice, because an uncommon tier Enspelled item can cast a first level spell up to 6 times per day, basically for free. Now, the save DC is fixed and the attack bonus is fixed if you want to do anything offensive with it. But, like, for example, this could be like an Enspelled Armor of Shield or an Enspelled Armor of Absorb Elements, would actually probably be a really good one. Silvery Barbs. Like, there's a lot of different spells that you could put onto this that would be really nice. Disguise Self, even. Sanctuary. Like, there's a lot of potential uses you could use an Enspelled Armor for, and of course, Enspelled Weapons let you do Conjuration, Divination, Evocation, Necromancy, or Transmutation, so that gives you a lot more room to play with. So I could actually see that being quite useful, because that's basically an early version of the spell storing item, because the spell storing item lets you make an item that casts a spell 10 times a day, but that's at level 11. At level 6, you can already make an item that casts a first level spell 6 times a day, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, this upgrades at level 14, because when you can make rare items, that means you can now make more items that cast third level spells 6 times a day on top of your spell storing item casting, which has now been upgraded to cast third level spells as well. So that means that you could have like 2 rare items that you're crafting that cast 6 third level spells a day each, plus the 10 third level spells that you can cast from this. So that's what, 22 different third level, or 22 third level spells across 3 different spells that you could cast in one day, in theory. That's actually pretty nuts. So I like the new freeform elements of being able to create enspelled armors and weapons relatively easily through this system. I think that's really cool. I do think that they should bring back more of the unique items, because I have also noticed that there is no listing for those unique items I mentioned, like the Homunculus Servant, or the Radiant Weapon, or the Repeating Shot that lets you basically give like a crossbow infinite ammo and stuff like that. Like, that would be, I think that they should bring those back, because I just like those items. And I also think that they should allow you to craft +2 items at level 10, just like you could previously, because I think that that would just be fair. Um, but other than that, I like the added versatility that you get now from just being able to craft any uncommon tier stuff. It is a bit weird though that the only thing listed at level 10 is the expansion of the uncommon tier into rings and wondrous items. I would kind of like to see a little bit more. Like, again, if you made it so that at level 10 you could at least craft +2 items in addition to the uncommon items, I think I'd probably be happy. But yeah, so let's move on finally from that subject. So the next big change, so you can now make artisan tools, which is nice. So you can just basically make every set of tools in the game. So cool. At level 6, you get magic item Tinker. So now, as a bonus action, you can touch a magic item within 5 feet of yourself that you created with your, like, what is now the infusion system, and you can convert its magical energy into a spell slot. So you can basically regain a level 1 or level 2 spell slot by draining an item, which that could be useful if the item is, say, like more utility, like say an alchemy jug or sending stones or something you might not need for that day. Being able to get back that spell slot, that's actually kind of nice. It just gives you a little bit more uses of your ability. Plus, if you have like an enspelled armor that you've, or rather probably an enspelled weapon, I should say, that you've used up all of the charges on, well, then the item still exists even if it has no charges, so you could then reabsorb it to get back a spell slot and effectively get another charge out of it. So, like, that actually could be quite useful. Now, and then expanded replication, that just basically is telling you that you can now use the level 6 table at level 6. No duh. Flash of Genius, I believe, is mostly the same. When you're in a creature you can see within 30 feet fails a check, you could take a reaction to add a bonus to the roll, potentially causing it to succeed equal to your int modifier. You can use it int times per day. So the only difference here is that it is specifically in reaction to somebody failing a check. I believe the wording on the original ability, let me check it here, Flash of Genius. Whatever can see makes an ability check. So technically, you have to use this preemptively, which is kind of annoying because it means like, oh, they rolled a nat 20, it was just a waste. It's nice now that you can actually use it as a reaction. Like again, this is the kind of like common sense design that I think they've taken with some of the 2024 rules because like I feel like this is how most people would play with the ability anyways. So it's just nice that they've changed it to actually work that way. Level 10, magic item adept. I think this is mostly the same. You can now attune up to 4 magic items at once. And when you plan for your replicate magic item feature, you can now choose from the level 10 table. That's missing a feature, isn't it? Because at level 10, you get the 4 things, and then you also can craft items of rarity of common and uncommon in a quarter of the time and a half as much gold. I really liked that ability because like it makes sense for the artificer to be able to craft items faster, at least cheap items. And I'm a little sad to see that ability go away because I like being able to craft items just fast and cheaply. Though spell storing item, as I mentioned earlier, did get buffed. Now it can support up to 3rd level spells, which is a big deal. That means you can make basically like a wand of fireball, if you're an artillerist at least, that can be cast 10 times a day, which is absurd, among other things. I mean, you could make Revivify 10 times a day. Does it actually mention... Okay, you don't need it prepared. The spell requires concentration. Must concentrate. Yeah, it still does not mention the material component cost, which implies that you can bypass it. Which means that you could cast Revivify for free 10 times a day. I don't know, that's a little bit silly. But I mean, you could cast Haste 10 times a day. That's absurd. I mean, that actually might be one of the best uses of it. Casting Haste 10 times a day, casting Fly 10 times a day. That could, like, I could see that being useful on just days where you're traveling over land. Being able to just be like, oh, I'm going to cast Fly on the entire party twice and be able to fly for basically like 2 hours with 5 people. That's not bad. Water breathing, water walk, protection from energy, like that. Increasing that to 3rd level gives you a lot of options. Okay, level 14. You can attune up to 5 magic items, and you can use the level 14 table. No duh. I think that's basically the same. Oh, but they got rid of the ignore all class, race, and spell and level requirements. Why are we getting rid of these cool abilities? I definitely feel like we should keep these abilities on, like, because these are just fun, flavorful interactions with magic items that kind of represented the fact that the artificer was just good at interacting with magic items. Like, I don't know why we're getting rid of this, because like this was already a fairly niche thing. Like, how often is an artificer going to want to use a holy avenger and an unholy avenger at the same time? It's funny that they can do that, but it's just kind of a really niche thing. I don't know why they had to get rid of it. Um Anyways, level 18 you can attune up to 6 items. I think that's literally the same. Yeah. And then level 20 so yeah, and then you can cheat death if you're reduced to 0 but not killed outright. You can disintegrate 1 common or rare magic item created by your replicate magic item feature, changing your hit points to 20 instead of 0. So that is slightly different because if you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed, you can end one of your infusions to drop to 1 hit point instead of 0. So yeah, that gives you a little bit more of a buffer than you had previously. That's nice. Also magical guidance. So previously you gained a +1 bonus to all saving throws per magic item you are currently attuned to, which means you technically get a +6 bonus if you've filled up all your attunement slots, which as an artificer, if you're not, you haven't played artificer correctly. So magical guidance, while you have attunement to at least 1 magic item, You can add 1d6 to any ability check you make. You decide to add the die after rolling the d20. You can use this benefit only once per turn. So they got rid of the saving throw bonus, which, I mean, I think that it was cool that you get a massive bonus to saving throws. Being able to improve all of your skills effectively, though, by a d6, that's cool. I feel like I would still prefer if it was based on the number of items you were attuned to, instead of it just being as long as you're attuned, you get a free d6. Like, we're talking level 20 here. We're talking balance out the window level abilities, and all you can give me is a d6 for having one magic item attuned. Like, give me a flat bonus that caps out at 6 for every magic item that's attuned to me, and then we can talk. Because then now it's basically getting, oh, I just got a free +6 to all of my skill checks. Like, that's a level 20 ability, if you ask me. Anyways, let's look at the subclasses now. So, Alchemist, I'll admit, I don't think I've actually ever played an Alchemist Artificer. It just wasn't really my style. So let's see here. We have tool proficiency. You get alchemist supplies. If you already have the proficiency, you gain proficiency with another type. That's the same as usual. In addition, when you brew a potion using the crafting rules, oh, okay. So they've moved it to the subclasses. So now, and so that's actually kind of nice. So it's not cheaper. I still wish they could craft items for cheaper, but I guess I'll take what I can get. It is nice that they can actually craft items faster at a much lower level, because that is one complaint I had about the old Artificer, is that I feel like this ability came online way too late, because it lets you craft items really quickly at level 10 when you probably already have a lot of magic items. So being able to actually craft potions at level 3, that's actually kind of nice. And I have a feeling, so yeah, when you craft a wand, so yeah, so it's based on the subclass. Each one gets a different specific type of magic item that they can craft twice as quickly at really low levels. You know what? I'm willing to take that. I think that that's actually really cool. Plus, if you think about it, consumables already cost half as much to craft. Um, yeah, because like a common tier magic item costs 5 days to craft, but if it's a consumable item like a potion, then it only would cost 2.5 days to craft, and then you're having that again to basically 1 day to craft a potion, which is actually kind of nice. Though, of course, it is worth remembering that the experimental elixir is still a thing, which does effectively let you craft multiple potions for free in a day. So yeah, so the experimental elixir, when the elixir is drunk or poured out, if any elixir remains when you finish the so yeah, it's still like you can only make the potions that last for 1 day, but it is still free potions every day. So I think you still get one potion for free. It looks like you use the tool to magically produce 2 elixirs. For each elixir, roll on the table. And then, yeah, so the table, you get 2d... Oh, actually, I think that's much higher than it used to be. So... Yeah, so it was 2d4, which is the standard basic healing potion, is 2d4 plus modifier. Whereas this is now 2d8 plus modifier, which is the equivalent of a Cure Wounds spell. So that's actually a significant improvement. The rest of these, I think, are the same. You got Swiftness, Resilience, Boldness, which is basically Bless, Flight... oh, transformation has been removed. That's a bit of a shame, because like transformation, yeah, being able to cast Alter Self, basically for free every day, that can actually have a lot of different interesting uses. But I mean, I guess it also lets you cast it with a first level spell slot, despite being a second level spell, which is a bit weird. But whatever. I guess it's not the biggest loss in the world, but it is always a shame to see something go. And I mean, replacing it with just you get to choose the effect from one of the other rows when you can already do that by just spending a spell slot. I don't know. I feel like I would rather have a 6th unique ability rather than having the ability to choose, because I just think that would be more fun. Anyways, Alchemical Savant, I think that's the same. You get bonus damage when you deal certain damage types. Sword of Regents, I'm pretty sure that's the same. You get temporary hit points when somebody drinks one of your potions. You can cast Lesser Restoration. Chemical Mastery, you get more bonus damage, resistance to acid and poison, and you can cast Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron. I think that is different. Yeah, you can cast Greater Restoration and Heal, whereas this is cast Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron without expending a spell. Let me look up what that spell actually does. Ah, interesting. So Tasha's oh my god, I can't say the name of the spell. Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron. You conjure a cauldron bubbling liquid. The cauldron appears in an occupied space, blah blah blah. The liquid in the cauldron duplicates the properties of a common or uncommon potion of your choice, such as a potion of healing. As a bonus action, you or an ally can reach into the cauldron to withdraw one potion of that kind. The potion is contained in a vial that disappears when the potion is consumed. There's a number of these potions equal to your spellcasting ability modifier. When the last of these potions is withdrawn, it disappears. The unconsumed disappear when you cast the spell again. Oh, that's actually really interesting. So you can cast that spell without expending a spell slot, without preparing the spell, without material components. Hey, what does it cost material-wise? That is not the spell I was looking at. Here we go. It costs 500 gold pieces. Cool. I mean, to be fair, it doesn't consume it. But that is still a lot of gold pieces to drop that you don't have to spend to cast the spell. This actually, I think, feels very flavorful because, like, I mean, it is only uncommon potions, but you do get, what is it, 5 of them for free? So 5 uncommon potions of your choice. I know it is of one potion of your choice, but still being able to cast that once a day, that's actually pretty cool. I like that. It's got a little bit more variety to it than what we had previously with the Greater Restoration and Heal. Now, don't get me wrong; these are very powerful spells, but I think that Tasha's Bubbling Cauldron is actually a lot more flavorful. So, I think that's pretty cool. Moving on to Armorer, aka the Iron Man class. So they get smith's tools, and they can craft armor in half the amount of time, which that feels less useful than being able to cast wands or potions in half the amount of time, because, like, you can only wear one suit of armor. I mean, I guess you can make armor for the rest of your party, but, like, you can only make so many suits of armor. It's that just seems a little bit more niche to me. But so arcane armor. The armor continues to be, you can turn a suit of armor you are wearing into arcane armor. You gain the following benefits. It does not specify non-magical armor this time, which is nice because that was always kind of dumb, that it required you to use non-magical armor to turn into your arcane armor, because this way you can now stack the effects of your arcane armor with, say, an enspelled armor or some kind of magic armor that you find in a dungeon, so that's nice. All of these, I believe, are the same, no strength requirement, you can don and doff it quickly, blah blah blah. Armor model. Dreadnought, Guardian, or Infiltrator. They've added a third armor type. Okay, so Dreadnought, you design your armor to become a towering juggernaut in battle. It has the following features. Armor Flail, an iron ball on a chain, appears on one of your armor's gauntlets. It has the following traits. It is a simple melee weapon, deals 1d10 bludgeoning plus your ability modifier, and keeping in mind you can use your int mod instead of your strength or dex. Giant Stature. As a bonus action, you transform and enlarge your armor for 1 minute. For the duration, your reach increases by 5 feet. If you are smaller than large, you become large. So you could be like a small-sized gnome and just turn into like this gigantic mech suit. You know what? I think this actually might be playing into that trope, because I remember a lot of people would actually do this with the Armorer Artificer already. They would like play as a small-sized character like a gnome or a kobold or something, but then they would have their armor be medium-sized so that, like, while they're in their armor, they count as like a bigger creature. Like, it obviously wasn't technically allowed by like the raw rules as written. But a lot of DMs were like a big fan of that idea. So it's actually kind of cool that they've sort of actually incorporated that sort of concept as an official character mechanic. Like that's actually really interesting. Um, you can use this bonus action 5 times a day. That makes sense. Wrecking Ball. If you hit a creature that is at least one size smaller than you with the flail, you can push the creature up to 10 feet straight away from you, or pull the creature 10 feet towards you. That's actually really cool. I like that a lot. That's a really fun new archetype. Guardian. Thunder Gauntlets. Yeah, 1d8 Thunder. So a little bit weaker, but it is a more unique damage type, so that I think that's fair. Um, I mean that's the same as it used to be, I believe, with the armorer. It was already it was always 1d8. So it is interesting that that is a d10 though. But and then the downside is that it uses bludgeoning damage. Distracting Pulse, it goads enemies, that's good. Defensive Field, while you are bloodied, you can take the bonus action to gain temporary hit points. You lose. Oh, okay, they finally removed the limit on the temporary hit points. So this was something I always found annoying, was that the artillerist artificer, which I am a fan of, but one of the weird things about it is that they can summon a protection turret that can give you itself and all of your allies temporary hit points every single turn of combat, basically for free. Meanwhile, the armorer can generate temporary hit points for themselves in the guardian armor too, but they're limited to doing it equal to their proficiency bonus. Whereas now they've made it so that you can use it any number of times per day, with the only limitation being that you have to be bloodied, aka at 50% health or less. So that is a little bit weird that you have to take damage in order to activate your force field, but I am a huge fan of the fact that it no longer has a limit. So I think I'll take that trade. Meanwhile, then we have Infiltrator. Gem-like node, you can fire it as 1d6 lightning damage, plus ability modifier. Properties thrown, range 90 and 300. Interesting that it technically counts as thrown, even though it's a ranged weapon. What? Oh, wait, what? I'm confused. Wait, what is the wording on the thrown ability? Okay, just double checking. If weapon has the thrown ability, you can throw the weapon to make a ranged attack. You can draw that weapon as part of the attack. If the weapon is a melee weapon, but it's not a melee weapon, it's a ranged weapon. Because like what I was thinking is maybe they were making it a melee weapon so that if you wanted to, you could use your strength modifier instead of your int or dex, which I mean, I don't know what artificer has more strength than intelligence, but I mean, go off. But it doesn't even allow for that, so I don't know why it has the thrown ability. That's very weird to me. Maybe it's a typo or something? I don't know. Lightning Jolt. You can deal an extra d6. That's the same as before. Speed increases by 5. Advantage on stealth checks. It looks like Infiltrator is least changed. That was always my least favorite. You know, I love that they added a second sort of frontline mode. So, and plus you can still swap between all 3 modes during a short rest. So, I think this is really cool. I like the new Dreadnought mode. I like that you can become large with it and knock people around. I feel like they don't. The one critique I have for it is I don't know why they're requiring that they have to be one size smaller than you. I feel like either they could get rid of the limit entirely, because let's be real, like there's already basic weapon masteries that, like, the push mastery lets you push people 10 feet just for free every single time you attack. And this is effectively giving you access to the push mastery, but the creature has to be smaller than you, which I think limits it a little bit unnecessarily. I would, at the very least, make it so that if the creature is the same size as you or smaller, you can push or pull them, because that at least expands the options pretty dramatically while still putting a limit on it. Otherwise, I feel like you could just not have a limit whatsoever. I mean, I guess if you don't want people pushing and pulling the Tarrasque around, I guess that makes sense. Um, but even still, I think that it is. I think that they should make that same size or smaller, because that way you can still like become large. Like you can still use it when you're medium when fighting normal people, and then you can become large when you come across like a large like enemy, and then be able to still push them around with that, or something like that. Like that's what I would do. Other than that, though, I think that's really cool. Level 9 armor replication. You learn an additional plan. It must be in the armor category if you replicate that. So this seems like a really greatly simplified version of the old ability. I think I honestly like the old ability more, because what you could do previously is they made it so that your armor counts as 4 different items that you can infuse, so that you can really cram a ton of things onto your armor at once. Whereas this just gives you an extra use of your replicate magic item feature just to specifically make armor, which means that you can't stack multiple different effects on your armor at the same time anymore. So, I like the ability to stack multiple effects, because again, the whole point, let's be real here, the reason why you play an armor or artificer is because you want to be Magic Iron Man, and Magic Iron Man has a lot of different abilities on his armor. So I think that I would rather have some version of the old ability where you can, because like they're also nerfed this a little bit as well, because you learn one additional plan, whereas this was you get 2, if I recall correctly. Yeah, the maximum number of items you can infuse at once increases by 2, whereas this only lets you increase it by 1, and you can't even stack multiple items on your armor anymore. I feel like that's an unnecessary nerf. I think they should, like, okay, I can understand if they want to reduce the number of extra items but to only 1. Fine, I can get that. But I think they should still let you stack multiple effects onto your armor at the same time, simply because I think that that's really cool. Level 15 perfected armor. The damage die of your armor flail increases to 2d6 bludgeoning damage. In addition, when you use your giant stature, can't talk today, your reach increases by 10 feet, and your size can increase to huge, and you gain a fly speed equal to your speed. God damn. That's a lot of fun toys. You just get a fly speed. Okay. And you become huge, which I guess makes the Wrecking Ball make a little bit more sense. Although, again, this isn't until level 15. I still feel like Wrecking Ball should work with the same size category or smaller. And again, that way you could then push around huge size things. Guardian, the damage die of your Thunder Gauntlets increases to 1d10. That's new. In addition, when huge or smaller creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet. Okay, that's the same, where you can basically, you can hook enemies towards you as a reaction, which is always fun. And then Infiltrator, damage die of your lightning launcher increases to 2d6, which is like, that's actually kind of weird that the lightning launcher goes from 1d6 with an extra d6 once per round to the same damage as the dreadnought, and then they still can add the extra d6, so it becomes 3d6 and 2d6 versus the dreadnought doing 2d6 2d6. That's weird. I don't know why it increases like that. Maybe they meant to increase the lightning jolt ability damage. I feel like this should be weaker, because like I feel like the dreadnought should be the one that deals the most damage, in my opinion. That makes the most sense to me, that they get the most damage. And then the range stealth armor should be dealing, like, maybe change that from 2d6 to like increase it to a d8 instead, or a d10 or something. Like, I don't know. I think that's a little bit of a weird jump, that it goes from the weakest damage to the strongest. The Gale-Wing creature also sheds dim light in 5-foot radius and has disadvantage on attack rolls against you. Oh, is that new, actually? the next attack roll against it has advantage. So yeah, it would basically be a guiding bolt previously, whereas now it specifically has disadvantage on attacks against you. Um, which I mean, that makes sense for the infiltrator armor being more of like a stealth armor that's not necessarily meant to be the front line. So you know what, I'll take that. Overall, pretty good, but like I said, I feel like the level 9 ability is the one thing I'm really not a fan of here. Artillerist. So yeah, tool proficiency, you can craft wands in half the amount of time. This is probably the best one so far because there are so many really cool and powerful wands you can make, and there's reasons to make multiple because I believe there are wands that don't require attunement, so you could just like basically make magic guns. Yeah, like the wand of magic missiles, for example. You like that doesn't require attunement, and you can just pump these out like nobody's business and give one to everyone in the party, and now suddenly everybody in the party can cast magic missile like 7 times a day, and you can just keep making them, and then eventually everybody will start like dual wielding wands. So that could potentially be really useful. Now, for the Eldritch Cannon, now I'm always a huge fan of turrets. I always love playing turret builds, and I see that they have stolen their homework from Baldur's Gate 3 once again. So, technically, the Artificer isn't in Baldur's Gate 3, but I do remember seeing a mod that adds the Artificer, and the big change that they made to the Artificer is they made it so that when you make your Eldritch Cannon, instead of choosing between making a flamethrower, force ballista, or protector, your cannon would just be all three of those things at once, and you would get to choose which ability you activate every time that you activated it. So that I thought was a really good change because, like, for example, it was always kind of annoying to have to give up your damage entirely in order to make a protector turret. And, like, the flamethrower was always the more niche one, not to mention to put your turret in the most danger to have to make it so close to the enemy. So, like, it always felt like too much of a risk to want to make a flamethrower turret, whereas now, you can just pop down a turret, and it's like, if enemies are far away, use the force ballista. If they get too close, use the flamethrower. If you feel like you need to help somebody, you can use the protector. I think that this is a great change for the Eldritch Cannon that just makes it a lot more generally useful, and it makes it a lot less annoying. Like, it's a huge quality of life upgrade, is what I'm saying. And I just think that that's really nice. Other than that, I think that all these abilities are functionally the same. It's 2d8 damage with a saving throw, 2d8, and it knocks people back 5 feet. And this one gives you 1d8 plus your int modifier and temp HP. So yeah, that is all the same. Arcane Firearm. You make a magic gun that does an extra 1d8 damage when you cast a spell. That's the same. Explosive Cannon. Every cannon you make is now more destructive. You can now take a reaction. That, I think, is improved because it used to be an action, wasn't it? Yeah, as an action, you can command the turrets to explode. This is much more useful to make it as a reaction. Doing so destroys the cannon and forces the creature within 20 feet of it to make a dex saving throw or take 3d10 force damage on a failed save or half as much on a successful. And then the cannon's damage rolls increase by 1d8. That makes sense. Yeah, and then oh, it was 3d8 previously, whereas now it's 3d10. So that's a slight damage buff as well. So yeah, actually, yeah, making that a reaction is really nice. And then fortified position, you can make 2 turrets, and now making 2 turrets that can both be whatever you want. That's actually really nice because now you can, because like what I think a lot of people would do if they even got to play to level 15, to be fair, is they would make a protector turret and either a force ballista or a flamethrower, depending on the situation. Now, you just get to make 2 of every turret so that you can have a protector assist you at the start of a fight, and then you can just twin fire force ballistas or flamethrowers every turn. That's just super nice. And then it still gives you plus 2 AC with half cover. So yeah, that's... I mean, I don't think I really got any complaints with Artillerist. The big thing is just making your Eldritch Cannon a lot more generally useful and a lot less annoying to have to deal with. So... hey, I'll take it. Battlesmith. Battle ready. When you attack with a magic weapon, you can use your int modifier, gain proficiency with martial weapons. You can craft an ordinary or magic weapon. Oh, okay. When you craft I was confused by the phrasing here. When you craft a non-magical or magic weapon, the amount of time to craft it is halved. So that, I mean, that's really useful actually. Again, I feel like the armorer is getting the short end of the stick in only being able to craft armor more quickly. I don't know if they should maybe get an extra thing or something. It feels like crafting armor is a lot more niche than being able to craft wands, potions, or weapons twice as quickly, because you can make a lot more of those and use a lot more of those, whereas everybody can only wear one suit of armor. But yeah, battle ready. Already read that. Steel defender in combat, it acts during your turn. Move as a reaction. I mean, this seems mostly the same. HP 5 plus 5 times your Artificer level. I'm pretty sure that's all the same as before. Oh, it's 2 plus your int modifier plus 5 times your Artificer level. I mean, that's barely any different. Um, Force empowered rend, repair, deflect attack, arcane jolt. When either you hit with an attack or an attack roll using magic weapon, your steel defender hits target. Yeah, that's pretty sure that's the same as before. This seems like Battlesmith is mostly. I mean, Battlesmith was always pretty good. Um, I don't think they needed to change much. Uh, they simplified the health formula, I guess. Uh, Force empowered rend is apparently slightly different. 1d8 plus 2 plus your intelligence modifier force damage, whereas this was 1d8 plus proficiency bonus force damage. So this would be 1d8 plus 6 cap, whereas this is now 1d8 plus 2 plus 5. So 1d8 plus. Oh, it caps out at 7, and it does so slightly faster. It's so different. Yeah, no, that's basically the same. Oh, they made Homunculus Servant a spell. Oh, they added. Okay, so they just added these as. Oh. So they just added these as magic weapon. Okay. Oh well, no. Now we just feel silly about complaining about that earlier, because obviously at the end of the book, they've added a lot of the items back in just as general magic weapons. So yeah, repulsion shield, returning weapon, spell refueling ring, repeating shot, radiant weapon, mind sharpener, and then of course, I find it interesting to make Homunculus Servant a spell instead of a magic item, which means you can get it without needing to spend one of your magic item slots. And you summon it. So actually, let's read through this spell real quick. So it takes an hour. You can cast it as a ritual, which is, I mean, that an hour and 10 minutes. It does consume the crystal. I do not believe Homunculus Servant technically consumed the crystal before, because it would require, yeah, it would require a gem that costs 100, but I don't think it technically consumed the gem. So that's a little bit more explicit now. You determine the appearance. Tiny construct, neutral, immunities, poison, exhaustion, poisoned. I mean, poison, exhaustion, poisoned. Yeah, senses, dark vision. His evasion, force strike, channel magic. Evasion, magic bond. Add the spell level to any ability check or saving throw the homunculus makes. Interesting. So you can upcast it in order to increase its bonuses. Okay, so I mean, just skimming through this, it looks like they've basically turned, like, this is basically Artificer Find Familiar now. That's actually kind of cool. Because like I would always find familiar to be kind of the phrasing there, but yeah, I always found the Find Familiar spell to be just generally useful. And this is basically a more powerful, because like familiars only have like 1 HP, whereas this gets 5 HP plus 5 times the spell level. So it starts out at 15, and you can upcast that to 20, 25, 30. So that's actually kind of nice. Um and you can still cast spells through it. It can still take actions. Uh Takes its turn. If you don't issue it, takes the dodge action, uses movement to avoid danger. So yeah, so I mean, yeah, this is basically just a better version of Find Familiar now. And it doesn't take up over your slots. So yeah, that's actually, I love that a lot. I'm glad that they bringing back all of the other magic items just as magic items that exist so that artificers can craft them. It looks like they're all uncommon tier, which means they're all unlockable at level 6, just like they used to be. So yeah, that actually solves a lot of my complaints I had about the original ability that I ranted on about for so long. So yeah, so I'm actually glad to see that that's here. It looks like Radiant Weapon is rare now, so that one you can only cast at level 14, whereas previously you could get Radiant Weapon, I believe, yeah, at level 6, so that's a huge nerf. Um, I mean, I guess it does still blind people, and blinding is kind of a big deal, because it gives you it gives everybody advantage against them, basically, and they can barely do anything without, eyes. So I guess that is a powerful enough effect that it probably shouldn't have been available at level 1 or level 6. But it looks like everything else is still available at level 6. So, yeah, so overall, I think my thoughts about this are pretty positive. They honestly didn't change that much in the grand scheme of things. A lot of the subclasses are still very similar. Um, I'm very happy that they've opened up the magic item creation rules, especially with the enspelled items. I think just give the artificer a lot more creativity in that department. So that's really cool. Um, some of the abilities I feel are unnecessarily nerfed. Like, I think it would be cool if at level 10 you still could craft items in general twice as quickly, and then that way you could stack that with your subclass specialty in order to craft items in a quarter of the usual time, if it aligns with your subclass. But then you could still craft like all items more quickly at level 10. It would also be nice if you could craft items more cheaply, but I guess they're trying to like balance out the economy or something. Um, but yeah, no, overall, I think that this is a pretty solid change. I think that there's only a few minor critiques that I have for them, so make sure to fill out that survey, by the way, to give your own feedback. Because, I mean, that is, after all, how they learn how to make good design decisions, is by looking at what people actually like and doing that. Um, and yeah, thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I hope to see you all in the next one.